Australia has the best of both worlds. Our constitution is great and we don't need to become a republic. What would we gain from becoming a republic except potential instability?
Well, what we gain is all of our important constitutional roles are held by Australians. And that, to me, is fundamentally important. We stand on our own, not linked in some junior way to another country. When we know that we are a country that stands on its own feet, we argue in many international forums way above our size or capacity, probably both sometimes, depending on who's the foreign minister. That's another issue. We are a competent middle power, and we should not be sharing a head of state, nor should we be parcelling off our Governor-General, our putative head of state, if you like to say it, to countries where Foreign Affairs has to have an argument with them about whether she is in fact the head of state. And they're in the embarrassing position of arguing that in fact she is, with countries who know full well that she isn't. So the short answer is, look, we are an independent nation on our own, we should stand on our own, and our constitutional arrangements should reflect that. And following on from that, you might say that I'm personally opposed to inherited power and privilege and everything else. So you might say, well, whoever gets to be President or Governor-General gets there by virtue of, at the moment, the Prime Ministerial appointment without consulting Cabinet. And that in a sense, is a means of dishing out a privilege that's unfair. I'd say yes, but it's a heaps more fair, because it's by an elected person, than it is just by you happen to be born. And nobody should be sucked in by this business that now they'll let the girls have their fair share. The whole thing of hereditary privilege has to go.
It's an internal issue, how we view ourselves, and it's an external issue, how the world and our region views us. And I think that's critically important. We have a unique way of doing things in this country that has been borne out over hundreds of years. We have the oldest living tradition and culture in the world. We've taken good bits from other parts of the world, probably some bad bits as well, but we certainly owe a lot to our system of democracy from Britain and the Westminster system, but we do it our own way and we do it really well. And I think that having an Australian head of state not being linked to a culture that is really quite different from our own now. Let's not forget our present culture was born of convicts and casts off, and that's led, I think, to a wonderful egalitarian society.
Not in my state, instead.
Not in your... Is that what's wrong with South Australia? And I think it's very, and it is important. And I go back, I think we can all go back to no one being more surprised than the Brits that we didn't say yes. That's got to be a massive signal to us that if they aren't worried and can't believe we're still tied to them, then we certainly should be taking that step to really, again, stand on our own 2 feet and be proud of this country and be proud of both our past and our future.
Yeah. Now, Greg, you have some views on this topic, no doubt?
Well, I agree with everything my colleagues have said, but what I would say in relation to the issue of instability that was raised in the question, and somebody raised this morning, having a monarchy, having the British monarchy as your constitutional figurehead does not stop instability. You've only got to look at, as somebody said this morning, Papua New Guinea, which is going through, or Fiji, they've gone through a series of crises. It's a hands-off monarchy. Now, in relation to instability, and we raised this issue, this came up in 1999, I well remember actually, Amanda may not remember, but she addressed this issue in a radio interview, I thought very succinctly during that time, when she made the point it's about the political culture of this country, which is a culture of stability. I mean, we've had crises and we've dealt with them, we've moved on, and we're still a democracy. That doesn't change because you have an Australian as your head of state. It's about the political culture of the country, and that's you can see that when you compare it with, for example, Fiji and PNG, which have their own problems, which are a creation of a whole range of factors, and that's again got nothing to do with the monarchy. So you can let the monarchy go, and you keep your stability.
Absolutely. So I'll take question number 2 from our say, and that was Australian voters have a history of saying no. How do we ensure that the next Republic referendum does not fail just because of the kind of pervasive negativity and division currently being experienced in our political culture? We might go back in reverse order. Greg, want to lead off on that one?
Well, I think you've got to build a consensus around it. I think you've got to have a Prime Minister on side. And again, we talked a bit about this morning. There needs to be, I think, an educational debate. One of the biggest enemies in 1999, alongside the division amongst Republicans, which was very unhelpful, but one of the biggest enemies was the lack of education, if you like, around how the Constitution works. And these guys would see it a lot more often because they're in politics and they run into people who you get the most basic questions being asked, and there is a lack of knowledge around the constitutional structures of this country and what happens when you become a republic. I'll just illustrate very quickly. During the 1999 referendum, we did a focus group out at Nunawading here in Melbourne with a group of women between the ages of 30 and 45, low to middle income, and it was just astounding how half an hour was spent on do we get Bill Clinton as president? I mean that literally, until the convener had to try and steer the topic away. Literally 30 minutes of an hour and a half. So that just shows you, there really is a big educational exercise here. And there's a consensus building exercise, but above all, there's a political leadership exercise.
Jane?
Yeah, I mean, again, absolutely agree, and I think the consensus is critical. If the movement itself is so bitterly divided, then people who are anxious or uncertain, clearly it just feeds into that, and the safe pair of hands of no, the easy message. And I think there needs to be all of that education work, but there does need to be a simple, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but that's probably a better word, a clear message about what is being proposed. And with that comes a recognition, we know from various polls and discussions, that people have an affection for the monarchy and for what role it's played, and to not be derisive of that either. I think to say that this system has served us well. We need to change it in somewhat, but the fundamental practical change won't be too scary. It's not going to look too different in how our democracy works, but we will be, again, standing on our own 2 feet and embracing our own future. And I think that's important, and that we will still have links with the past, and we'll still have great ties in a diplomatic and cultural sense with England and Britain, but that this is a change that is an important and a great step, but it's not going to fundamentally alter the stability or the progress of the country, except in some positive ways that people can clearly understand.
Amanda?
These things are true in the educational context, and I know people, you'd say quite well educated, I'm not talking about PhDs, but normal, functioning, well educated citizens who would say, oh, does that mean we'll be like the United States? But not so far as saying we'll have Bill Clinton, but will we be like the United States? Will a whole system of government change? So that is a very, very important point. The second point I'd like to make is I think you will never win by bagging the monarchy. You just don't go up to people and say, you've been a blithering idiot for years supporting all these you-know-what-wits, and have them say, gee, I've seen the light, I'm coming with you. They just think, hell, why are you insulting me, and go into their corner.
Yeah.
You'll just never win people over by telling them they've been fools. So I think, you said no rubbishing. They didn't ask for the job. They got given the job. They haven't done a bad job. It's just that, we're now independent and we don't need them anymore. Thanks very much. I'd like to see us make a change in the current monarch's lifetime so that she can come. We can have a huge shebang, but a great big function, and make a big go of it. And I personally think that if you want to extend the time before we become a republic, then complicate the model and go for direct elect. If you want to be direct elect, fine. You could say, well, we're going to wait a long time for a republic. We might as well wait another 10 or 20 years to get direct elect. Good on you. You'll wait that long because you will always have a fight over that. We know that. Personal view, if we could just say, look, we'll still be called the Commonwealth of Australia. I don't give a damn if we're personally, if we're called the Republic of Australia, it's not the name that gets me. I want the arrangements to be Australian. So if we're still called the Commonwealth of Australia, still call whoever it is the Governor-General, that's a nice little, anachronism from the past. That'll please some people. Because then you can say, look, it's all staying the same, except she now will represent all of us and not a monarch in another country. And I think people could grasp that. Everything else stays the same. It implies less, it is, because it is less change. And I personally would go for incremental. I'd get a republic, and then if you want to change it in 20 years and you can argue to go on, good on you. But I don't think you'll get one in my lifetime if you insist on dramatic change. Oh, and to highlight that we would, I'd add on to that we would not only remain a member of the Commonwealth, but be perhaps a strong and more vocal, active member than we are at the moment. Because that's what's really important to the Queen. I don't think she cares if she comes out here and watches another, multicultural function in the heat. So
She had a good time. She loved Canberra.
I often said if I win the lottery, I'll get badges done and give one to every Australian. It'd be a lovely little. I wanted a Tandberg Queen, but Tandberg says he couldn't do political things, so okay. But a respectful caricature of the tightly permed Queen, and really bright fluoro colours, and be a poster and then reduced to little badges. If you love her, set her free. And under that it'll have, look, she's getting on a bit, it's a long way to come, she doesn't like the heat, she hates the flies, and she feels overdressed at our Barbies. give the woman a break, But what is important to her is the Commonwealth. She sees herself as having played a role in building the Commonwealth since she came to the throne, and a very strong case for what she wants in that sense. I mean, she may want to remain monarch, I don't know, but I know that's the really important thing for her, and that's what I think would be handy, therefore, to focus on. Give the opposition less space to argue on. Put them on the edge of the table so you can push them off.
So, Greg, you argued hard nationally for a particular model in 1999. Your thinking's advanced a bit. You had a clean sheet.
As I was saying this morning, I just don't think you can ignore the elephant in the room, direct election. But I have to say I'm with Amanda in the sense that I think if you got Republican, if you had a Prime Minister on side and Cleary and Jones and co didn't do what they did last time, then I think you would have got across the line, because I think that the safety option is the one that will get most people, and the incremental option is the one that will get most people. I mean, I agree with that, but it does mean, and I've talked to Cleary about this since, and I think those people have lost their potency too. I mean, to be frank, part of its age. I mean, Clem Jones I think is dead now, and Ted Mack's pretty old, and Phil's up there. He's up in your territory.
He certainly is.
Brunswick somewhere, rabble rousing. But I don't think that they were sort of key figureheads of that direct electionist push, and were strong personalities in the 80s and 90s. But they're not there now, and no one seems to have picked up that mantle. So I think there is a much greater opportunity of a united Republican movement in the next referendum.
Yeah, no, I hate to be in firm agreement, but I think absolutely you need the incremental change. You need a clear message and a clear model for people, and a model that doesn't scare people. And I do think, and as Amanda pointed out, there can be further work done down the track. And I do think there needs to be a lot of work. If we are going to move to a direct election model, there needs to be a lot of analysis of what that's going to look like, and roles and responsibilities, and who would be able to run, and what it would cost to run, and all of those things, which, is complicated and complex, and people rightly have different views on that. So I think allowing to, taking something to the Australian people that delivers the Australian head of state, that unites us in that way is the key, and not allowing too much airtime for people to come in and cause havoc and confusion, I think is the key.
And perhaps, can I just add one thing? Last time, I don't know if it was Minchin or Abbott or both, but so you might know, Greg, who ran that line, you can't trust the politicians, against a majority of politicians agreeing.
Minchin. Yeah.
Look, the point is, but others agreed.
No, of course
others agreed, and may regret that.
Yeah.
Just to see that under their face.
Yeah.
On posters around an electorate. But what a lot of people don't appreciate is, at the moment, the Prime Minister just announces to Cabinet, this is who I've appointed.
No, exactly.
I mean, I
And
heard
it's the
about one
Queen's
appointment
rep.
on the radio. Go
Yeah.
to Cabinet the next day. I thought I'd just tell you, this is what I've done. So, you know, we already have a situation not
Absolutely.
far from what I say, which is
Absolutely.
let him appoint, or him or her, as it is at the moment, appoint her as it is at the moment, and they both sack each other if they want. And under our system, they'll both have to answer to the public for it.
Yep.
In one way or another.
Yep.
So, so what do we need to do to attract the attention of the currently disengaged, not very interested, don't really care much about the Republic of
Well,
Australia?
while these two are thinking, I've got a slightly frivolous, but I think often frivolity works, because it gets under guards. There's someone in, I think it's Abbott's electorate, who makes royal coaches. The Hawke government gave one to the Queen in 1988 as a gift from us, I think. And then another one was given later for her, I don't know, 80th birthday or 60 or 70, I don't know. But that was by the coach maker. And somebody did suggest at the time that we should give her that gift, and we didn't. And someone piped up, I think seriously actually, oh well, we could have it as a gift to use here. And I piped up and said, what a great idea, that's fantastic. Because I knew that if we have a monarch poncing down a street in a bloody coach, everyone will say, what's going on with that lot? A bunch of ponces, and it'd be finished. So if we could bring some of the regalia and pomp, I'm not kidding you with this. If you bring one of those silly coaches that look okay in the UK, but look, imagine up and down the street here.
Yeah.
People would be laughing, saying, this isn't us. So that's my first idea.
Greg.
I think the it's time factor is always a potent one. I mean, in a sense, you know, referenda pass in this country because people think it's time, whether it be Aboriginal, the significant referenda, leaving aside the technical constitutional referenda. I think it is an it's time factor. I mean, taxing powers that people thought, for example, after the Second World War, that was during the Second World War, that the Commonwealth should have those taxing powers because we were a nation. You know, it was its time. It was in relation to Aboriginal people, its time. There was nothing in it. We're talking about Brian Costa raised earlier, and he's absolutely right. This, you know, given the politics of self-interest is so potent now. I mean, I think that the self-interest here is simply that there is an its time factor. And it's a natural progression, and it's a natural thing to do, and you do it with a minimum of fuss at a referendum, at an election. I think one of the problems of the 99 campaign was that it was a gift in a way to our enemies, in the sense that it wasn't tied in with an election. The focus was on the Republic. It was day in, day out for a few months. I think if you put it in an election context, it perhaps stands a greater chance. Particularly, but you have to have that political consensus. I mean, if you have the political consensus on it amongst all political leaders, it's less likely to fail. And most people would think, well, let's just tick the box, you know.
Jane, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, look, I think it was a great point about the carriage, but also remembering 99. I mean, the royal family had probably had its most horrific period, or was in the middle of it, with scandals and nonsense and yachts in Egypt and all sorts of things going on, and divorces and affairs, and we still. Yeah, exactly, toe sucking, and we still said, no, we want you. We love a good toe sucking. So, I think that, again, it's about, and at the moment it's probably enjoying another golden age with 2 billion people tuning into Kate and Will's wedding, etc. So I think clearly getting the leaders of the movement, politicians engaged, commentators engaged, but I think also cutting through and getting some people that we all relate to, whether you get back on board with some sports people or actors, whatever. I know that that's a cliche and difficult, and you can't control them. But I think when you say what's the people on the building site thinking, well, clearly all the other ducks have to line up. But I think it's important that there's a broader conversation outside the intellectual or the political circles. I can tell Greg clearly agrees with me after that big sigh.
Well, I think no. Look, just on that, I mean, the big mistake I think we did make in '99, though, Jane, was to use celebrities, and I'll tell you why. Because our polling showed us that people used to say, "Well, Kate Blanchett's a terrific actress, but what would she know about the Constitution?" The people they listened to in '99 were, in fact, politicians, and one of the reasons why we did the Hawke Hawke ads and in the Fraser Whitlam ads was because they had resonance with people because they thought they know because they're in politics
no,
and
that's
they
a fair
know, and
point.
people like
Yep.
Amanda know, they know. And they were the ones they were listening to. I think you've got to be very careful about having endorsements from celebrities, for want of a better word. I just don't think it always
Well, on their
works.
own. I mean,
On their own, yeah. They're part of a mix, and I think the problem was
part of a
they were on
mix,
they
yeah.
were on their own very much in '99, and the campaign had been geared around that.
And but the other thing about '99 is it was already like it was on the national agenda.
Yeah.
There was a referendum.
Yeah.
How do we get it back onto the national
and that's
conversation?
that's
so
true.
politicians
That's true.
have to
No,
respond
that's
to
true.
it. And
I think it's
part of that,
Shane
a
Warne.
broader.
I think Warnie's got to
Warnie, you see?
be out front.
Warnie and Hurley. Hurley could come out
Warnie
and
and
say
Hurley
she thinks she wants to become an Australian, but she won't unless there's an Australian head of state.
Now, that's
Why don't
nice.
we do that?
That's nice.
There you go. The next 2020 Big Bash.
early modelling.
no, look, you know, you got to be a maker and shaper of your life, not a taker of what's there. So, okay, he's there at the moment, but you can make and shape things to make politicians respond or move on and get someone else, whatever. But you don't, from my perspective, it's the wrong thing to say, oh, well, you know, the leader doesn't like that, so we won't do it. Well, if everybody wants it, maybe the leader will have to adjust. And so the task is to proceed with shaping your life or shaping your nation's life the way you want, not just what does the leader want. And if everyone does that and there's a groundswell, people do respond.
So from the Liberal to the former Liberal.
Yeah, no, I think Amanda's right. I mean, I think that there's a sort of Nixon in China issue here. What I mean by that is Nixon, for all his faults, went to China when if a Democrat had gone to China, he would have been regarded as communist. Nixon could go to China. Nixon could do the Clean Air Act, the Environment Protection Act, in fact, the whole suite of environmental legislation that's in the US was all done by Nixon. And so there's an element of that. And sometimes conservative leaders, if they see the momentum going a certain way, will go with it because they want to be shaping it on their own terms. And I think Amanda's point's right. If the party wants it, and I think most of the state leaders, Amanda, are Republicans. There'll be very few now who.
Look, I'm not sure. Honestly, I haven't checked.
Yeah, I think most of them are they're either inclined to or are firm. I mean, I know Colin Barnett, for example, in fact, he campaigned for us in '99 in WA, very keen Republican. So there are, and because you've got Turnbull and others in the Liberal Party federally who are Republicans. So that's right. Leaders move.
But there is this widely held perception, is there not, that you absolutely can't get the referendum up if one of the Prime Minister or the Leader of the Opposition is gunning for a no vote.
Well, I think it makes it more difficult. If you've got the Prime Minister on side, it really helps. But as we saw in '88, when the opposition started to run a scare campaign on that referendum, as Brian Costa said earlier, opinion polls thought Hawke was going to win those referenda, and he didn't. It is very difficult.
The only thing I'd add is also absolutely agree, and that again, while the influence does need to be exerted at senior levels and have to get the commentators engaged, that grassroots campaigning is absolutely critical. You know, that the party is made up of its members and of its politicians and its leaders, and there's many ways to get that groundswell. And I mean, I think just looking at our own party and what happened recently on marriage equality. For the Labor Party was a very, very, very impressive and thorough and dedicated grassroots campaign that was run by Rainbow Labor and other groups, which had a major impact. And that was a lot of community meetings, a lot of emailing, a lot of just to generate that level of pressure when it really wasn't an issue that was necessarily affecting the whole world. So I think that's. It's important to keep that pressure on.
You haven't asked the question yet.
In terms of campaigning going forward, we should be doing probably, well, I don't know what the movement's doing now because I'm not all that involved, but I mean, certainly the online presence I think is really significant. Interesting about online, I had a call last Friday, yesterday, from a change.org, which is an American group that's now come to Australia. It's sort of like Get Up, except it's a sort of it's people initiate the campaigns rather than Get Up telling you what it's going to be. Over an issue of strip search powers on kids in Australia, which I've been raising through the Lawyers Alliance in the last couple of weeks nationally. And they want to now do an online petition. And it's a really potent weapon, these online petitions, in terms of getting laws changed. And I think that's something we can be looking at, that online presence, because that has really matured as a space for campaigning.
And look, I think it's a terrific idea. And again, to go back to that idea of the grassroots campaigning, one of the great tools of grassroots campaigning now is the new technologies, and particularly to get to young people. I mean, that's where people are getting their info, their news, the YouTubes, all of that, the Facebooks, to make it interesting, punchy and fun for them, and to use the theme of the day, really, making sure it is in people's faces that what we're doing, and to go back to that question of the oath that I took, which I now do recall, that sense of all of us sitting there thinking it's not right. Like, I don't, the Queen has no relevance in my life. I stood and fought a hard campaign in the seat of Brunswick with representing the people of Brunswick, and, you want to represent the people of Australia, not be talking about the Queen. So that stuff is very much in your face, and I think it's effective. And again, to go back to how do we get this right back on the national agenda, having it important, funky, interesting for young people who see this as a real cause for them and something they believe in and they want to see in their Australia. It will be a significant chunk, I think.
I can't see that you'll be successful. We'll be successful next time if there isn't, not just at the time, but progressively leading up to that, an online campaign. You just won't be. Young people can't be bothered reading the papers. That's right. They're not that well written, frankly. So no wonder they go to the net.
What about your column? What about your column?
My column aside, of course.
Mine too.
But they're not written for people who want to get their news quickly and focus. It's all, someone like mine, opinion piece. To just go and get the hard facts is not that easy out of a newspaper. So I think online's absolutely. I would also say, just my natural predisposition, have a campaign that has a lot of humour. If you make people laugh,
absolutely,
you're under their guard, you're laughing together, and not at someone, but like at Prince Charles or something, albeit there are opportunities, I know. But,
although that might work.
I just leave them be. It's just a mistake.
That's right.
And find ways to do online and humour and simple, very simple. But resident for president, I didn't think worked because people weren't sure what president meant.
That's right.
Did it mean the United States? Did it mean this? Did it mean that? You need something that's simpler in concept.
Amanda Vanstone, why is it that you, as a former member of the Liberal Party, are so good on these questions with regard to the Republic? I support everything you've said. I think you've got the whole thing, and Jane too. We appeal now to the whole country. We appeal to nationalism. We use the old slogans such as "if it ain't broke," and you're really saying what we have is something that ain't broke, and we've got a good tradition, but our constitution is out of kilter with our tradition.
Yeah, we can make it better.
We can make it better.
I say to the "if it ain't broke"
Right
people,
on,
how would you
right
say
on.
that? If it's not broke, don't fix it. I used to say, we'll go and watch black and white telly.
Throw your iPad in the bin,
It's pretty simple. Don't have an air-conditioned car. Don't have a radio in your car. You can make things better.
Go to the blacksmith instead of the
And
dentist.
don't lose heart. There are plenty of Liberals that are good Republicans.
Absolutely.
Plenty. And just remind you, what I don't think it's unfair part of a discussion. Well, let's say it was not a cabinet discussion. It was a discussion after cabinet about the referendum. And I took great delight in eyeing Howard off and saying, of course, the Menzies seats all voted Liberal, all voted yes. And the truth is, it's the red ribbon seats that voted no, and the blue ribbon Liberal seats voted yes. You do not have a problem with what I call genuine Liberals. You have a problem with, at the moment, the current leadership of the Liberal Party, and you have a problem with hardline, old-fashioned Labor voters. They are apprehensive and frightened about this change. So, if you go into this new phase thinking the Liberal Party is your problem, it's not.
Totally agree. I mean, that's right. I mean, it was an issue where our polling showed, and showed out on polling day, the higher the income level, the more likely you support as well. And that's one of the reasons why you got that very strong vote in, for example, the North Shore of Sydney, the inner eastern suburb or eastern suburbs.
Costello's seat.
Costello's seat, and Abbott's own seat.
Kooyong, lots of them.
So Jane,
But I was going to get Jane's views on this, how you convert that, because that was a really difficult area. Those working class Labor areas were tough, Jane.
Well, I think there is a problem with the Liberal Party. In the sense that, no,
sure
we can get into that generally, but we've got 15 minutes left. But I think that there is a problem in that the leadership of the Liberal Party clearly for a long time has been no, and Howard played a devastatingly effective role in what's happened in the past. So while there may be certain highly educated, more wealthy demographics that are voting yes, because perhaps they've had more exposure to discussions, etc., and they understand and they get educated about it, perhaps. So I think there still is a major problem because of that issue. That if the leadership of a major party in Australia is against it, does make it very difficult. Again, it goes back to when you're trying to take the broader community with you, simple, clear, and pointing out the benefits. This is making it better. This makes out we are, I think, the best functioning democracy in the world. I think we have great democracy at every level of government. We're all required to vote to make our voices heard. I think it's a terrific, everything, you can always make things better, but we've got a great system. We're a very democratic country, and this is a step forward, and it's about, Aussie, oi, 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 whatever, however you want to put it. This is about being proud of being Australian and just cutting through. And sometimes, the funny ads, whatever it is, just saying to people, speaking to people in a conversation and not ramming it down their throats. But it's a complicated. Clearly, it's been a complicated exercise.
I think
that isn't just about
but I think there's a real issue with the word. There's a real issue with the word president, and we struck it in '99. I think Amanda said earlier you should leave the term Governor General. I'm inclined to do that because there is a real problem with that term, simply because of the dominance of in the 20th century of the American Empire around the world. President means President of the United States to Australians. That's what it means to many, many Australians. And if it doesn't mean that in a direct sense, it means it in a subliminal sense. And they do have
American political system.
Yeah, they do have that problem. And I just think you leave the title as it is. You leave Governor General, and then you can. That's the incrementalism, and then you change it once you're there. Once you've cut the Gordian knot.
I do think too it's worth raising a point that you should, everyone knows you fix your roof when the sun is shining. You don't wait till the bloody downpour to get up and fix the leak unless you're a complete idiot. And therefore we do need to keep working on this so that there is some sort of at least grassroots momentum for change next time. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll get to a point where people will suddenly say we have to change. For example, you might go, I don't know, say Prince Charles became king and people thought it was terrible or something. They want to change quickly. Well, why change quickly when you've got the time to think about it? You should be thinking about it now. And the line to run, I think, against prime ministers is that no Australian prime minister really wants this because they want to hog the limelight. And that's the truth of the matter. We had a very unseemly situation once where one Prime Minister was arguing with the Governor-General's office over who'd toss the coin at the bloody cricket. And you think about it, because our Governor-General is basically told, and this one's been told, stay out of the regions, don't get too much domestic publicity, just do the job, sign the papers, you're lucky to get the job, just sit there, shut up and don't do too much. Why? Why are they told that? When other countries have a head of state that plays not a political role, but a leadership role in a sense of raising your spirits and aspirations, because the Prime Minister of the day doesn't want that. The Prime Minister of the day always wants to be the head guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Amanda Vanstone, Jane Garrett, and Greg Barnes.